What's going on? Welcome to the new episode of Spill the Beans. I got my good friend and mastermind member, Rubi Tinoco here, and we're going to be talking all about how she scaled her real estate business to net 7 figures last year and is growing it considerably again this year. And she had a big tragedy that happened in her life, and real estate and how she's built her business and the way that she's been able to automate things has really given her a lot of time freedom to be able to spend time with her family in these tough times. So I'm excited to share her story and how she's grown her business. She's an absolute rock star and came here to the United States at the age of 8, only spoke Spanish, and she's a female living in a very heavily dominated male business, and she's absolutely crushing it. So I know that she's going to continue to crush, and you guys are going to love all the insights that she shares in this episode today. Rubi, how are you? Cheers.
Good, cheers.
Hey, I appreciate you being here. This is good stuff. Beautiful day, Charleston, South Carolina.
I love it. Yeah, perfect place to live.
hanging out, looking at the harbor. So, tell me what's going on in business. And I know you had some tragic life events happen over the past 30, 40 days. So if it's okay, I'd love to talk about that and kind of how your business has allowed you to spend time with the family. But tell me a little bit about what you have going on in the real estate side right now.
Yeah, so I mean, my niche is flipping houses. That's what I do. And
how'd you get into it, by the way?
Yeah, so it's funny because
I know a little bit about your story, but not the whole thing.
So before that, I was doing construction. I had a remodeler, remodeling company, and obviously with no systems, with just like day-to-day life, and so I started that, and I got to the point where I was spending like so much time in my business, where I was going to work from 5 a.m., coming back home like 8, 10 p.m., dropping my kids with my mom, my sister-in-laws, and all of that. And so it was back in 2017, I think it was in October, and when I was like, I can't do this anymore. I need a change. And
where do you think you got that work ethic from? Have you always worked hard?
I think it's my dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, every single day he always tell me how good I was on anything. And he always said that everything was possible.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because you see so many people looking for the get-rich-quick stuff right now, and they don't want to do any work, but they want to make a ton of money, and they're into cryptocurrency and whatever, because all you got to do is buy it and it goes up. And when the market's good, that happens. But the reality is, you got to go and put the work in. You got to go and roll your sleeves up, get your hands dirty, and do the work. And even though the market's good right now, there's actually a lot more work that needs to be done, because you got to source the best deals, and you got to source the best supplies and vendors and contractors and all that stuff. So it's just as much
harder
work.
Too.
It is, right? So you got to put in more work, and I think it's just important for people to understand that, like, I woke up this morning at 6 o'clock, got the kids off to school, and guess what? Started sending you messages, and Cameron messages, and partners messages by 7 o'clock this morning, and then we're here and hanging out and all that other stuff. So I think it's critical to have somebody in your life just kind of instilling success. Rubi, you can do it. Rubi, I believe in you. Rubi, you're crushing it. Rubi, you know. And I think similar for me. Like, I come from blue collar. My parents were working class people, and always instilled like you could do great things. And I think for me, I don't come from great adversity. I didn't grow up in a household that was super broke, or a broken household with divorced parents, or some tragedy that happened to me early on. But I feel, and that's a driver for a lot of people. I guess is why I say that. But for me, it's almost like I don't have anything to use as an excuse of why I should not succeed. You know what I mean?
Exactly, yeah.
Like I've been given everything that you could possibly ask for and support that you could possibly ask for, and the confidence you could possibly ask for, and like I owe it to those people, like my parents, like your parents, right? Who instilled those thoughts of greatness in us to go and do great things. You know, that's kind of what's always been in my mind, but I could see that a lot in you too.
Yeah, and for me, it has been my dad all the time. Even yesterday, he called me yesterday and he was like, Ruby, you got this. You know, whatever it is, whatever you're working on, you got it. And just like you were saying, going with the excuses too, I came to the United States when I was 8 years old, no English, you know, and for a certain period of, you know, my life, I thought that I wasn't going to do anything. I was going to work in restaurants, you know, all the time. But it was this voice that was always telling me, you can do it. I know you can do more. You got this. There's a lot more that you can do. And
powerful stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's when the only thing that you know is working in restaurants or working in whatever type of industry, because of, you know, I mean, from an ethnic standpoint, a lot of ethnicities stick to certain industries, right? Or certain, like Fatty Boumitri, right? Fatty is Lebanese, and a lot of people in the Lebanese community, everybody becomes a doctor. That's it. Like that's what everybody does. They all get their medical degrees. They all just become doctors because that's what they're supposed to do in the Lebanese community. And he's like, no, well, he still fell into that a little bit because he became an attorney, you know? So he still went to the white collar profession, but he quickly realized, like, oh, I don't have to do this. I don't have to follow suit with everybody else in the ethnic community. And he kind of diverged and got into more the business side, which is still kind of a Lebanese thing. But
and the same thing.
But it's very hard to break that. So I have a lot of respect for what you did. You know?
Yeah, and the same thing happens with the Hispanic community. So it's all about washing dishes, working in restaurants, and construction. And that's why I was in construction, you know, because my family, everyone that was around me was doing construction, either painters or, you know, framers, whatever. And that's what led me to construction. The only difference was that I built, you know, a business, a company.
So you built the construction company and had crews working for you, right? And you would go and renovate houses and renovate buildings and stuff for other people.
Right. Yeah. So we did a lot of commercial and residential. I did it for about 4 or 5 years.
Did you build ground up or mostly renovation?
Ground up.
Construction?
Yeah, I did new construction, but it was like subworking.
Got
so
it.
it was more like all the painting, all the framing, you know, stuff like that.
Got it.
So, I mean, obviously, you know, the construction coming from my family, from the Hispanic community, this is like, that was like my dream, just building a construction business at that point. But when you're actually doing it, and you see all the time that, you know, you're putting into it, I mean, the return was great, but what about my time? What about my energy? What about my peace? You know, is this the life that I want to live? Is this the life that I want to live for the next, you know, 10, 20 years? And that's where, by going back to 2017, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I told my husband, like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I want to enjoy my family. I want to enjoy you. I want to enjoy my girls. I want to be able to pick them up from school, drop them off, make them lunch, you know, be with them. And that's when I decided to quit everything. And it was that day.
Now you're the owner of you're the owner of the business, though. So what did you do?
Oh, and that's funny because I always say I quit, right? But it's like I quit.
And there's people who rely on you, right? And and all of a sudden, once you start a business, you start this business, but then because I don't want to work for anybody, but then all of a sudden you have people working for you, and you feel just as obligated to support and keep building the business and growing the business, because you realize there's other people who rely on you to continue, you know, leading the charge. So like, what did you end up doing? What did that conversation look like with your team?
Yeah, I think, and that was one of the hardest. I've never seen it that way. I mean, that was one of the hardest, I think, the hardest thing that I have ever thought. Because when I thought about, I think for 1 minute I was selfish. I was just like me, I was just thinking about my girls, my life, my business, like my relationship. And it was my husband that told me, like, hey, what's gonna happen with the others, the other people that are working with us. And we sat for a minute and we thought about their potential. And I thought about they can do something greater too,
Sure.
And we are here with them, stuck with them in something that they can be working with us for the next 20 years. But what if I quit, this, or actually, just close my business, and they will find better opportunities,
That's the thing, right?
They have to.
Yeah. And we think like, oh, this is the only thing that they can do. No, these are capable, amazing human beings that can go and find other opportunities.
Right.
And who knows, maybe it's a blessing for them because this isn't what they wanted to do long term, and it set them up for something better.
Exactly. So for 4 years, they were busy every single day, Monday through Friday, even Saturdays. It was optional. They wanted to work Sundays, And got to the point where we all need to change. And we can't grab someone and tell them, this is the only thing that you can do right now. This is the only opportunity that you have. But when you let them go, it's like they have to find better opportunities. So that's exactly what we did. It was that day when we sat down, we talked about all of this, and my husband was like, okay, Ruby, I'm here to support you, because I'm more like the paperwork. I'm more like the to go to do, and he's more like pushing me and always like supporting me and all of that. And it was that moment where he said, you know what, Ruby, just do whatever you think it's best to do. And I'll be here to support you, and we're gonna find a way out. We're gonna find something else to do. And I was like, okay, perfect. So he stepped out of my sunroom, and that year, those months, we recently just bought a almost 3,000 square footage house. I paid off my dream car, and we were like living the life, with my construction business. But all the time and energy wasn't there. It was, not with my family. And so that time, what I did at that moment is I grabbed the phone and I called the company that was, providing most of the work for us. And I knew that by calling this company, it was like, this is it. Yeah. And
it's essentially cutting off off the flow, right?
That's the main one. Yeah. And then so I call her, and she was like, Ruby, why are you doing this? That's, please don't do this to us, And I was like, I'm sorry, but I already made a decision, and I know you're gonna find someone else. You're gonna give opportunities to someone else, and even the people that we work with, you can give them the opportunity. And end of the conversation, I hang up, and then my husband was looking at me from the door, and he walks in, and he was like, what? And I'm like, I did it.
We burned the ships.
We did it, yeah. And we were like hugging each other, we were jumping, we were celebrating, and then we sat down in our couch, and then just like you and I, we were just sitting down, and then we like silence for 1 minute, and then we look at each other and we're like, what are we gonna do?
Now what?
Now what? What's next? Like, we recently just bought a property, paid off our cars.
That's so powerful, because it's like everybody wants let's have something else set up, and then I'll burn the ships over here, right? And then I'll cut ties over here. I did the same thing. I was like, no, not doing this. I burned all the ships, and I said, I will go and find an open door or an open window to crawl through of new opportunity, because like, if you always have 1 foot over here and another foot over here, you're not committed to anything. I think you just got to cut ties. And that's why, people come out to the mastermind and events that I host, and there's always somebody that we get to either quit their job or break up a business partnership.
I heard that
or
on the last
something.
one too, and I was like, quit my job.
It happens all the time because it's the greatest growth that you can have is when those constraints are around you. And when you it's better for you to set the constraints on yourself than for somebody else to do it. So like you said, nope, we're burning the ships, we're up. And then you're just in a better mindset of what you want to do versus somebody else firing you, and then you're like in more defense mode, you know? It's better for you to do it and then be in offense mode, and that's exactly what you did. I love it, I love it. So what did the transition look like of saying, hey, I want to go and become a real estate investor?
Right, so it was, that day we did a list of all the things that we could do in life. You know, all the things that, you know, from insurance to everything. And then 2 weeks after, I started hearing the radio like, oh, real estate with $0, you know, start investing in real estate and all of that. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, you know, this is my opportunity. So, and I went to one of those. Actually, when I was doing the construction, I was flipping mobile homes. That was like kind of like on the side. But I didn't know nothing about real estate, how to list a property, how to buy a property, nothing. So I was just basically selling a title, you know, like a car. So when I heard about real estate, flipping houses with $0 catch my attention, I went to it was a 2-day event. My husband and I were there. And then they were like, oh, $200, you know, for another 2 days, more information. And we were like, it's totally worth it. Let's do it. We went for it. And then on the $200, after that, they
25,000.
actually 30,000, 40,000, and 50,000. So I remember that the only thing that we had in our bank account, because we were bad administrators, like really bad. So when we were doing construction, it was so bad that we only had $30,000 in our bank account, in our savings account. That was the only thing that we had. So when we went to this seminar, they call our names. Actually, before calling our names, it was funny because we were sitting down and the speaker was, you know, introducing the products and all of that. And he was like, they're gonna call your name in the back. So whenever you hear your name, just go in the back and they're gonna give you more information about those packages and all of that. And we were like, okay, awesome. And I was like, I can't wait to go to the back. I want to see what's next. And then I was, but
you didn't know the price yet, though, right?
No price yet. And actually, I knew I had $30,000. We had $30,000 in our saving account. And I look at my husband, I was like, hey, like, what if it's like, you know, $2,000, $3,000? Can we buy it? I think this is great. And he was like, yeah, I think so. I think we can do that. Okay, perfect. And then 5 minutes after, I was like, what if it's $5,000? And he's like, yeah, I think we can do that too. And I was like, what if it's $10,000? And he was like, Ruby, like, yeah, let's just go for it. I think it's great. I came back to 15. He said the same thing. When I came back to $20,000, he was like, how about you just sit down, relax, wait for your name, and then we'll figure it out. And I was like, okay, perfect. Because I was already so anxious to know, you know. And they called our names, went to the back. And we were in the back sitting down. He was like, you know, they're a salesperson, so you guys are gonna do great. You guys got this, you know, and all of that. And I was like, okay, well, what is the price? And he was like, oh, we have 3 different packages, 30,000, 40,000, and 50,000. And from that moment, my husband, like, he didn't say anything. He was just quiet, didn't say anything. And I was just like, okay, well, great. I was like, can we tell you tomorrow? Because it was the next day was, you know, the last day. And I remember that day we even stay in that hotel because we wanted to put like as much attention as possible and, you know, all of that. And we were the last ones in there that night. So he was like, yeah, perfect. Just tell me tomorrow, you know, and whatever, think about it and all of that. We went up to a room. We didn't talk at all. Like from the elevator to the room, we sat down again. We didn't say a word at all. And then And then finally, I was like, what are you thinking? And he's like, what are you thinking? And I was like, I don't know. I just think it's great, but we only have $30,000. And he was like, he looked at me. He said, Ruby, like, do you really want to do this? And I was like, yes, I think this is an opportunity. We don't have nothing else to do. This is the only thing that we have right now. And he was like, okay, well, do you think you're going to succeed at this? And it was so much pressure.
Those are good questions, I mean, first question, he categorized it in, do you want to do it?
Right.
And two is, do you think you can do it, right? Can you do it?
Can you do it?
Do you want to do it, and can you do it? If you can answer both of those in the positive, then guess what? You pull the trigger on it. So
yeah. And I was like, I was committed by his questions. I was like, yes and yes. And then he said, okay, well, if you know that you're going to succeed at this and you're going to go all for it, then let's do it. And I was excited at that moment, but I was also worried because I was like, what am I getting into it? Like all eyes on me, And then I was like, okay, perfect, let's go for it. And then I asked him, so we're getting the one for $30,000? And he said, nope, we're gonna get the one for $50,000. And I was like, where are we gonna get the other $20,000?
Yeah.
And I told him that, and he was like, you have a car that you recently paid off, your dream car. When I was 8 years old, my dad and I went to a dealership with all my brothers, my mom, to buy a family car. And I remember seeing a Lincoln Navigator, gray Lincoln Navigator, back in 2006. And I remember that I told my dad that I wanted that car for our family. And he said, he told the salesperson, let's ride that car. We went for a ride. I was so excited. And I was like, Daddy, please get this car. Well, we ended up not buying anything because he couldn't afford it. So that day I was like, oh my gosh, like one day I'll have one car like that. So that year.
It's wild how there's those moments in time. There's so many things that happen to us in life that you don't ever remember. And there's a handful of those just pivotal moments in your life that affect everything moving forward,
Yeah, and that's I say to myself, one day I will have a car like that. And that year it happened, and I paid off like completely. And it was like well, that year it was like, I think I purchased it for like $40-something. I paid off with $20,000-$30,000 that year. Had it for a couple of years. And so that year when I quit everything, I also feel accomplished because I was like, I paid off my dream car. I bought my house. We're living the life. The life that we think we're living. And,
that you think you're supposed to be living,
be
right?
Living, yeah.
According to society, right?
Right. And so he said, you have a car that you recently paid off. And I was like, oh, like inside of me, I was like, oh no, like my dream car, And obviously, the years passed, so it's not the same car. It's not a Lincoln Navigator anymore. I got a Chevy Suburban. I think that year was 2018. And anyway, so I was like, are you asking me to sell my car that I recently just paid off 2 months ago, and it's my dream car? And he's like, yeah. If we're gonna go for it, we're gonna go all for it.
I love that. All in or all out? Pick one.
And I was like, you know what? Let's do it. We high-fived each other and went back to the seminar the next day. And they call our names again. We were there. We were like, we're gonna go with the $50,000, but we only have $30,000. And he was like, oh, you don't have to do that. Just grab the $30,000. You can upgrade later. And my husband was like, nope, we're gonna get the $50,000. And this is how we're gonna do it. You're gonna get $30,000, a check of $30,000 right now, and then the other $20,000 we're gonna pay it in the next 2 weeks. And I actually have $35,000 in my bank account, not 30. And he was like, no, like, don't do this. Like, just grab the one for 30,000 and out, because we told him we're gonna sell our car and then we're gonna pay you. And he was like, guys, like, you guys don't have to do this, like, And we were like, this is what we're gonna do. And if you either take our money or you leave it, that's the only option.
I think I've been on both sides of the coin, right? I've been on the side where they're like, no, you need to do this, you need to do that. And I don't know, when I signed up for a $25,000 or $30,000 program when I first got started in real estate, and didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I signed up for it was 3 courses, and they sent a mentor out to me for like a week or two, or I'm sorry, like a weekend. And I remember thinking about what was going through my head on that side. And then I have the coaching program, and so when I was with that publishing company, they had something similar, right? Like high-end programs, you go and meet with the person in the back. And I never really liked it because I remember how, I don't know, suffocated I kind of felt, because I didn't necessarily believe in myself enough, right? Earlier on. And there wasn't somebody being like, let's do it, let's go, and let's go all in. And I hadn't really had success in other areas of business previously to that. And what's going through my head is like, what was that guy thinking, selling you this package and thinking, this little girl who's never done real estate investing before comes in, she's got 30 grand in her bank account, she wants to give us that and then sell her car and give us another 20, like, do you think he believed enough in you, or and he was trying to say, oh, I don't want to get in trouble here, I don't know.
You know what, since the day.
But it doesn't matter, right? Because you believed, your husband believed, and you're like, hey, we burn the ships, and when you're faced with a choice to either succeed or die, you're going to succeed,
This is
we're resilient beings,
Right. But
That's
going
awesome.
back to that question, when he said, you don't have to do this,
Yeah.
we were like, we got to do this.
Yes.
This is the only option that, and I feel like, that was our commitment. That was it right there.
Talk about going all in.
Right, yeah. We made the decision. We knew we wanted to do it. Yes, we want to do it. Well, how are you going to commit,
When you got the vision and you got the why, the how becomes possible, right? You start asking yourself better questions of, how can we get the money? Where do we have access to capital? Where can we borrow the money, sell something, gain access to the cash in order to then pursue those greater endeavors, And so that's wild. That's wild. So what did you do from so you lived off the other $5,000? Was that kind of the idea?
Yeah. So we had another $5,000, and also, when I quit my construction job, we still had some checks. They were, the last work that we did. So there's still some money coming in. Yeah.
So at least you had a little bit of a cushion there.
Right, yeah.
Smart.
So we knew we had, money coming in for the next few months. It was going to stop, eventually. So that was it. That was, that day we went to the to 2 dealerships, and one offered $20,000, the other one $25,000. I said, let's take the $25,000. I remember that we went back home, we cleaned the car, and then we took it to the dealership.
Smart. Shows a little bit better.
Yeah, shows a little bit better. We got to wax it, wax and all of that.
Curb appeal,
Right.
It's like you wouldn't show a house. We never showed houses, or we hate selling apartment buildings mid-construction because they just don't show well, right?
They're not.
You got to get it 100% of the way there, clean, safe, functional, updated.
Even staged too.
Staged.
Get it ready.
Make sure it looks good. You don't show units that aren't, all the way clean, with bugs in the corner by the windows or anything like that. From a leasing perspective and a sales perspective, it's all about the packaging, right? How can you package it up? And even down to selling your own car to a car dealership, you guys understood that from a marketing perspective.
We took it clean. So that's what we did. We got it paid. After that, we had more expenses because they were like, oh, get this marketing, get this, and 7,000 here, 8,000 there. That's how I started in real estate. And I started by wholesaling. The first year, I only flipped one house from start to finish, sold, purchased, renovated, sold. What I did learn is how to find private money lenders, how to work with, private money. my private money lender, I actually offered this person 50%. 50% for you, 50% for me, for the profits in my first flip. Well, it turned out we only made $2,000. So
I was gonna say that could either go really well in your favor or really not well in your favor, and the private money lenders.
Right, and but this private money lender, I mean, the cool thing was that it was another student. It was another student. They wanted to learn too, and they wanted to learn, and we knew from the beginning. We were like, this is what we're hoping for. We were hoping for, I think, like $80,000. But we also know that it's our first flip. It can go wrong, right? But we both agree that we wanted to break even. So we pretty much break even there. And I learned that year with that property how not to flip houses. From start to finish, how not to do it. And that was the first flip.
And I think that's also an important lesson, because you think, oh, I just can go get the education, or I can go do this on my own. It's really a combination of both. You kind of need to learn how to do it from somebody else, what not to do from somebody else, and then equally you have to go and do a deal. But if you do both of them together, you will advance way quicker than just either only doing it on your own and learning how to do it or not do it, or only getting the education and then not actually taking action. Like, you need to do both of them, I think, all the time in order to really accelerate your growth.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you're number 2. What did it look like? So that was 2017?
18.
2018? And then 2019?
2019. In 2019, I was like, we got to make this work. I paid over $80,000.
Now we really got it. Now we really need to make it work.
This is the game now. So I did, back in 2010, I did some wholesales. Everything was good. The wholesales was the ones that were keeping us alive. Bringing, food to the table, paying mortgage and everything else.
Were you doing that in 2018 also? Wholesaling?
Yeah,
okay.
That's what I did.
So you still had some wholesale.
Yeah.
So you flipped one house, but how many wholesale deals did you do in 2018?
I think I did about between 10 and 15 wholesales.
It's a good first year.
Yeah. And that's why I started to make connections too.
And I think that's the key. It's low risk, not a lot of money, almost no money out of pocket, not using any of your own credit. But really, the important part is you get to know who's moving and shaking in the community. Who's got money, who doesn't have money, who's a real buyer, who's not a real buyer, who you're spending your time with, and it's valued time versus wasting your time over here with someone else. Like that's what really catapulted me into finding my first private money lenders and stuff too. So
no, that's huge.
So what did 2019 look like?
2019, I was like, I need a team. I can't go without a team. I'm doing everything by myself. My husband was there. He was doing some marketing too and all of that, helping me out. But it was more like I'm wearing all the hats. And I thought that was why I couldn't scale. So what I did in 2019 is I hired 2 people to start doing marketing, and help me with everything else. So in the first 6 months of 2019, I did over 30 transactions.
Wow.
And
you realize marketing and people are investments, not expenses. As long as they're utilized the right way, measured the right way, deployed the right way. Those 2 things are always investments that you will see a return on your investment in business. And that's a big couple of months.
It was great. But I also noticed that during that time, I was still working in my business. I was still doing everything with them. So I couldn't be away from my phone. We did great. The transactions were great. Having a team, like you said, it's key. But at the same time, they didn't have systems. They didn't have procedures. They didn't have, checklist, they didn't have anything.
So Rubi's the safety net to make sure that they don't fall off every single day. You still have to be there and kind of grease the wheels.
So I was, at church, I was at meetings, I was, wherever I was, my phone was ringing. It was either a text or a call. Ruby, how do we do this again? Ruby, what if this, like, what do I have to say here? What do I have to say there? The private money lender asked for this,
So what was the best method that you learned on how to train them and how to get them to really understand the processes, the procedures, and how do you get your words and your mindset instilled into your team?
Exactly.
Especially the CEO mindset, right? We're so sporadic and
we're
chaotic.
So
like there's zero order inside my brain.
And that was exactly, but that I was like, okay, I got to do this different. So what I started to do is I started to make a process of everything that I was doing. So one day I sat down and I started thinking about every single thing that I was doing in my business, from buying process to selling to renovating, everything. And it was
so what did that look like? It was essentially a step-by-step plan of what you do. And I remember when I was a solopreneur, hiring like my first employee, I didn't even know what somebody brought up a process map, or I read about it or something, and I was like, what the hell is that? And essentially it's just you do this, and if it's a yes or a no, or
and
like
go wherever.
You follow the arrows. And I was like, oh my gosh, a process map. And my brain exploded.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can put this in place for everything. And then checklists, right? It was really process maps and checklists were the two things.
Charts, everything,
that I just put in place, and that's what I kind of understood on how to convey these thoughts, convey these principles to teams, and me not have to be there all the time. And then when I started measuring the process, and I started measuring the metrics that go along with it, then I understood that I could really manage some of these things and understand what are the key performance indicators that I need to know. If I had a 5-minute phone call, Ruby, how many offers did you make? How many investors did you talk to? How many and you know what those key activities are for your team that then lead to closing of deals and profits and everything else. So that was a game changer for me. And I remember like just the idea of a process map, like, oh my goodness. So you put process maps in place for these people on your team, right?
Right, yeah, so that's exactly what I did. And then what best than having a team to test it out. So I put it out there for them. Yeah. Like, this is, we did some trainings. This is exactly what you're gonna do. This is,
we're about to see how good this process really is.
Let's see how it works. And I started to test it. And they were doing great. Obviously, when you're testing something, there's always gonna be, some holes that we have to fill out and restructure that. And we did it. It worked. We did it better and better. And obviously this is not only just, from me, but also I invested a lot of money in education and other systems and, in other people. I think that's one of the reasons why I'm here, because it's very important to always learn from someone else. Yep. And so as I was doing this, like I said, I invested in a lot of different things that I brought to my business, test it out, and then do it better. Or what works or what doesn't work. What can it work for, for my business? And so I tested out. We did great. And that year, for like the last 6 months, I let it run. And I told my team, don't call me. Yeah. Don't call me unless it's really, really an emergency and you really need me. Yep. Other than that, you need to learn how to figure it out. Here's everything. We tested out for, I think.
Were there any times where you're like, that was an emergency, you should have called me, or this is not an emergency, don't call me?
Yeah. I think there was one. It was a offer that they made an offer. We lost our earnest money,
Oh, really? Yeah.
And I was like,
if we're gonna lose thousands of dollars, that's an emergency. Yeah.
That's a call right there. And
I think that's pretty cool though, because if they don't lose that money, they're gonna remember that more than you remember it, right? Yeah. And so they're gonna have that planted into them of understanding, like, I need to not mess up. And Ruby was super cool because I lost her money and she didn't fire me over it, or she, like, whatever, So you gotta, think about all the mistakes that we made on your first house, on my first many houses. I'm a horrible house flipper. I'm terrible at it. That's why I just do apartment buildings, right? But like, think about how much money we lost or messed up on, and like you got to let your team do that same thing. And we can't expect to hire somebody who's new, who needs to be led, and not allow them or expect them to mess up or lose or lose some cash. Right? Like they have to go through that same process if we want them to be great, the same way that it took us to be great and to be successful. So I think it's really important that people understand you got to give a little bit of grace to your team and let them mess up and let them lose a little bit of money. Obviously not a lot of money, but they're going to really remember it. It's one thing to lose your own money, but to lose your boss's money or somebody else's money that you work with, that hits you in a different angle, and you really remember not to make that same mistake the next time around.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. So, I mean, they did great. We closed 2019. You know, we did awesome. We did a lot. I think we did over 50 transactions that year.
It's amazing.
Then we jumped into 2020. When I jumped into 2020, I was like, we got to make this better. One of my, I think one of my biggest, and maybe it's not a mistake, it's just my thought, that it was, I want to flip certain properties a year. And
number of properties?
Number of properties.
Okay.
We were chasing number of properties.
Yep.
So in 2019, we were chasing number of properties. And I jumped into 2020, and
I want to be able to say, boom, 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 I did 100 deals this year, right?
Yeah, that was the thing.
I know people who flip 100 deals who don't make any money.
Right.
You know, and I know people who flip 20 deals that make millions and millions of dollars a year, just because of the market and how good their operations are and their profit margins and everything else. So it's not about number of deals; it's how much money are you keeping at the end of the year.
Exactly. And that was my mindset for January 2020. I was like, I don't want to think about how many deals I want to make. I want to think about how much money I want to keep. I want to stay. And that changed the whole thing, the whole picture. And so we redid the process of everything, you know, up to code. You know, we put it up to code, and I actually, you know, during the process of 2020, you know, we changed. You know, we let some people go, got some new hirings and all of that. Because we also understand, you know, the process of hiring. Someone can be good, but if they don't have the right systems, they can't perform, right? And the same thing with on the other side, where, you know, maybe they're not where they need to be in order to perform, you know, at the level that you want them in this. It
doesn't matter how good the systems are. If they're not the right person, then guess what? They're not the right person for that seat.
Right. So we did a lot of, you know, transformation in the office and all that kind of stuff. 2020, we closed with over $1 million in sales, in profits, net profits.
It's awesome.
And that was
in
huge.
2020, in COVID, despite what was happening and everybody else saying, should I invest or should I not invest, and what's going to happen in the market, and nobody has a crystal ball, and all these fears in the marketplace, you're like, let's roll, let's buy it. There's good deals out there. Let's keep on moving. And you guys net $1 million last year.
Right. Yeah.
Awesome.
And
so, and then you joined Legacy Family.
Yeah, I was like, I gotta celebrate this. Somehow I gotta celebrate this. And I was following you for I think 6-8 months. And I was looking at your other interview, I think some weeks ago, where you were saying like, how do you recognize if someone is legit? You know, if you want to work with them. And I think that's exactly what I did with you. Like, I followed you for like 8 months. You know, and I was just, you know, watching your Instagram and your Facebook, and just, you know, trying to figure it out. Okay, who is this person? What is this person doing? How can I contribute, and how can this person help, you know, my business grow and all of that? And when I hit that million, I was like, that's it. I pushed the red button. You know, I was like, let's do it. Let's go.
And there were some other people in the group that you knew, like Kelly was in the group.
Yeah, Kelly was in the group, and everyone else.
A few others in Charleston.
Right, yeah. And that gave me more confidence too.
Sure.
I was like, okay, this is, you know, when you're hearing it from someone else, like, And that's when I, you know, joined the Legacy family, which I think it was one of the best investments that I have made. And And back in last year, 2020, during my process of from January to like March, and also the previous year, I was getting a lot of calls. You know, a lot of messages, calls from people that I knew, like, hey, how are you doing this? How are you flipping houses? How are you, how did you made, you know, this amount of money? Or, you know, how are you doing with multiple properties? So it was a lot of questions.
Mostly from people on social media?
On social media.
It's powerful stuff.
Powerful, yes.
It's crazy.
So powerful. Yeah. Everyone is from social
media. We met
media.
through social media. Like,
we met from social media.
Like
yeah.
some of my best friends, right? And the people that I hang out with and go on vacation with are all people I met on the internet through social media. It's crazy to me. Like,
yeah.
If you use it to create content, or if you use it in a collaborative, progressive, positive manner, social media can be wildly powerful and improve your status in everything that you do, your friendships, your relationships, your financial scenarios, everything, right?
Everything.
And at the same time, if you use it for the negative side and just to consume content and drain your brain and waste time, and like, it can be very negative for your, but you use it in a positive way. I use it in a very positive way. And I think if you understand how to create content and you understand how to utilize it as a tool to grow your business and grow your relationships, I don't know if there's anything more powerful out there than social media. So it's wild.
Yeah, it's wild, definitely. I think I have like 3 or 4 private money lenders that came from social media, and I don't even know them. I've been working with them for the last year. I don't even haven't met them. I haven't talked to them. In the phone we have, but never met them before.
They just see what you're doing on social media.
Yeah.
Oh, I like what Ruby did. Oh, that she obviously knows how to flip a house. Oh, she's hanging out with her kids. I have kids too. I can associate with what Ruby's doing over here. She's taking her girls to dance or soccer or whatever, and oh, my kids do soccer. I like Ruby, and her husband's a nice guy, and like, and all of a sudden, like, they know you even though you don't know them.
Yeah.
And I've had people call me up or text me or message me on social media and say, hey, I got $250,000. I want to deploy it with you. I was like, dude, I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
He's like, no, but I know you. I've been following you for 2 years. You're a good dude, and I want to invest with you. And I'm like, it's remarkable to me.
Right.
But I think you got to be genuine, right? Like we were talking about before.
Yeah.
You got to be consistent. You got to be genuine. I think people are starting to be able to see through the BS and the garbage and the fakeness that's out there on social media. I'm just not the guy who flashes shiny cars and spends money on stupid stuff, right? Like, I love spending money on lifestyle, on memories, on family, and on like my own primary home and vacation homes and stuff like that. I love doing that, but I don't know. And there's nothing taking away from the people who do like to spend money on $50,000 watches or $250,000 cars. It's just, that's not my thing.
Right.
There's some people who follow that. There's some people who follow more my lifestyle and my mindset. And you're a family person. I'm a family person. I guess you always typically attract what you put out in the business or in the world. And I think that those are the kinds of people that you attract, the kind of people that I attract, and why we're hanging out together. So I think it's important to just be honest, be open. You don't have to be somebody else on social media. You got to be you, right? Like, there's people who follow you because you're a female that would never want to follow me, or because you're Hispanic and they don't associate with a white male. You know what I mean? And so, like, it's important that we both contribute and we both give value, because there's certain people that are going to align with me better, and there's certain people that's going to align with you better, and they're going to understand the information the way that you experience it and the way that you explain it better than I ever could, And so it's important to have more leaders, right? I want to have more leaders and more positive stuff out there in the world, so that way our kids and future generations have more people to look up to. Like, first you have to have the abundance mindset of being able to share all of that, and at the same time, again, just being super authentic, super genuine in who you are. Don't put on a show. Don't put on a facade. You don't have to do that. Right. You will attract the people that are attracted to you if you're just authentic, right? And then that way you don't have to like fake it and remember what you faked and then follow that fakeness and live that lie, and it's just, that becomes exhausting,
Right.
I feel like,
Yeah.
you know, just be genuine, be authentic, share
you.
value, and you don't have to be the guru, right? Like, it's easier for somebody to associate not with, like, I have 4,800 units. It's very difficult for somebody who's a newbie to be like, I want this guy to be my mentor, right? Because they're like, how do I get my first deal? It's much easier for somebody to follow somebody who just bought their first rental property,
Right.
or is in the. I just had Christian O'Neill on, and he's a young kid, 22, 23 years old now, and just graduated from college last year. Hasn't bought a deal yet. Some of the best reviews that I've gotten on any of these Spill the Beans episodes are from Christian, who's never done a deal but has the right mindset. He's doing the activities, he's doing the actions, he's looking for opportunities. And people are like, holy shit, I associate with that kid, right? Like, I'm new also. I want to go down that road. And like, it's easier for them to align with him than they are with me. And so, you know, my overall point to all this is just be genuine, be authentic, be you. You don't have to be somebody that you're not. And just keep on putting out content, and you will attract your tribe, you know? And you don't need a big tribe, you just need a committed tribe. And that's exactly what you're building right now. So let's fast forward. You got the business, you got people asking you, hey, Ruby, can you coach me? Ruby, can you mentor me? Ruby, can you?
How can you do it?
Yeah, how do I do this, right? And
Yeah.
so I know you reached out to Brian, who's going to be on one of these. I'm gonna invite him out soon. But you reached out to Brian. You said, "Hey, what do I do here? Or what if I want to create a course?" And he said, "Don't create a course, right?"
Yeah, he was like, I sent him a test of like a webinar test, and now that I think about that webinar, I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I did?
Yeah.
It was so terrible.
Yeah.
I listened to it over and over again, and I was just like. But anyway, so that's where we start, right?
So he
Gotta start
says,
somewhere.
don't launch a product.
Right.
Instead,
Test it
because
out.
if you're going to launch a product, you don't know if it's going to sell.
Right.
So why not just host a webinar for an hour, tell people what you do, how you do it, and what you're going to launch,
Right.
and have them sign up for it on the webinar. And then if people sign up for it, then you go and create the product, because now you know it works. Now you know it'll sell, right? And that's exactly what you did. You went and hosted a webinar, and you fumbled and mumbled, and I didn't watch it, but you're telling me, like, you fumbled, you mumbled, you explained it terribly, like, which is what I did on all my first webinars. And got to a point though where at the end of it, you sold. How many people signed up, and how much revenue did you make?
So that first webinar, I signed up. I think it was 100 and something people.
That registered for the webinar.
Yeah, that registered for a webinar.
Free webinar, right?
Free webinar.
Yep.
We only had like 80 people that showed up.
Which is great, actually,
And,
because typically you get about 40 to 50% of people who show up.
Right. No, yeah, it was.
Is a
it was
typical
a lot.
statistic.
Yeah. And then that night, you know, it was the end of the webinar. I did my best.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember that I went to bed. My husband was like waiting for me, like, you know, how was it?
Yeah.
It was good. And then I sat down and I looked at my Stripe account, and I was like, nothing. Like, you know, like not even one sale, one message. My message, everything was dead. And I was like, I guess Brian was right. Test it out to make sure that it works before you spend so much time, years, building something that it's not gonna work.
For sure.
And I was like, okay, I think this is not gonna work. And then the next day, when I watched my Stripe account, then boom, you know, we got 3 sales.
Three sales at how much?
Altogether $15,000.
$5,000 a piece for $15,000 in revenue from a 1 hour webinar.
1 hour webinar.
Now, obviously, there's going to be work that goes into creating the course and creating the mentorship and all that stuff. But just the proof of concept on that, knowing, holy cow, I did, and I'm not saying you did, but like, in your mind, we paint a picture of, I did horrible. I could do this so much better on this webinar.
It was my first one.
And I still had 15 people or $15,000 of revenue that came in. Imagine the second time I host the webinar, or the third time I host it, or the 100th time I host a webinar.
Yeah.
And how many people will sign up because I'm crafted and I've practiced and went through. And then now you have 3 people who went through your course who are now testimonials of yours, right? Oh my gosh, it was amazing. Ruby was so helpful, and blah, blah, you know, like that then makes it better, makes it easier. But like, you gotta go through the pain points of struggle and defeat and failure before you hit the success side of things. You know?
Yeah, and I mean that day, you know, 3 sales, we did great, and one of the other things that Brian told me is do it consistently, do it over and over again. So I went for my second shot. We got like 80 people that registered, only 37 showed up.
And, typical numbers though, 50%.
And then we got 2 sales.
Still
and then
good.
I did it again.
The ratio is appearing, right?
Yeah.
So hey, if you get,
and everything was organically too. Like, no ads. Everything was just organically, posted by
posting on
following
Facebook.
me, posting on Facebook, and then I did my third one. And with the people that registered, I was like, okay, well, I need to now start making the product because I already sold it. You know? So now I started to make week 1. I knew it was going to be 7 weeks. I knew the structure.
Yep.
So we started with week 1, and that's how we move on. And so the third one that I did, we got 37 people that registered. Only 8 showed up. And I was like, I don't even know if I want to do it or not. I was like, only 8 people here. And I was like, I'm just going to give my best. I'm just going to go for it. Like I have 800 people in here. I did it, and we got 3 registers.
3 out of 8.
3 out of 8
It's
that
awesome.
registered.
It's awesome.
And I was like, okay, this is it. I'm gonna start building the course. We're gonna start, putting everything together, and that's what we started to do. And then on January,
so you had 3, 2, and then 3 at $5,000 a piece. That's $40,000 of revenue that came in your first launch of your product.
First month.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So and now we have another.
And anybody could do this, right? If you're you don't have to be a real estate investor. Or obviously, there's a lot of real estate investors that watch this, but like, whatever you do, whatever you are an expert at, it could be, I don't know, in baking cakes. It can be in camera with videography. It could be in anything. Like, I don't know, host a webinar. Do you want to learn how to do this? Like, I'm an expert in this field. You host a webinar and offer a product and see how many people are willing to pay for it. And then guess what? You might have a product. Even if people pay for it, but you only sell 2 of them and it's $500 a piece, and you're like, that's the only thing that I can sell out of 500 people, like it's 2 people. Well, all right, then you give them a refund and you just don't launch the product. But I love the idea of doing the webinar and testing the marketplace, seeing how many people would actually pay for it, and then, creating the product afterwards. I think it's a brilliant process to follow.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and that's exactly what I did. I started enrolling.
When was that? January, February?
January. Yeah.
January of this year?
Yeah. And end of like the last week of December, beginning of January, and then on February, another 5 people enrolled. And
That's awesome.
And then another 5, and we're up on the 20s already. But I haven't hosted anything. For the last 2 months, I haven't done any webinars or anything else. It's just because now I'm putting my time into actually building it out. Actually putting it together and everything.
Which, by the way, you got to do webinars consistently, right? You got to keep on filling the funnel. It's almost like doing outbound, outsourcing deals, right? Like, I remember when I was flipping houses, we do a bunch of marketing, we get all this deal flow come in. And I'd be like, oh, stop marketing, don't spend any more money because we got to sort through all these deals. Right. And then we close on these deals, we'd renovate these deals, we'd sell those deals, and then all of a sudden, our bucket would be dry. There'd be no new deals because we stopped marketing. We turned off the spigot on the marketing. And so then we'd start marketing again. And we had these feast and famine cycles of a ton of deals and then no deals, and a ton of deals and no deals. And so the education's the same way. Like, you got to consistently be putting out content. You got to consistently be adding value to your followers, and consistently doing webinars to get fresh bodies in the I don't know, call it the funnel or in the programs and into your community, and have that consistent. Because it's all about timing, right? It's like, hey, here's what happened. Yeah, I was too busy last month, but I have time this month. And because we didn't do a webinar this month, they missed out on it or something or whatever it was. So I think it's really important. We got to make sure you're doing webinars every single month.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely, yes.
So keep going.
I'm like, one more add to my list.
Yeah, I know. But it's 1 hour. You've done it. You have it ready to go. But you gotta silo out some time to do that webinar and just do the posts. Do you market to your email list too?
No,
for that webinar.
Yeah. Well, if there, once I haven't done that yet. what I have done is only after they're registered, then I send them, you know, the emails.
Yeah.
But I'm testing
And do you
out,
market
you know,
to the people who have registered for past webinars?
No.
And let them know, oh my
Not
God.
yet, not yet. I'm
Those
still
are
working
that's the
on,
low-hanging
you know,
fruit. Those are the people who are interested. They just
Right.
couldn't make the webinar.
Yeah.
Do you send out the recording of the webinar to those people who registered but didn't show up?
No. We're just
Ruby, what kind of mentor am I? Like I feel you make me feel like a failure. We need to sit down and talk about all this
after
stuff.
this. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, these are people who want your service
Right, yeah.
that just from a timing perspective couldn't make it work. We got to go and reconnect with them and let them know, invite them out to the new, you know, the updated webinar, or send them a recording. Say, hey, sorry you missed it, and send them the recording, and then
we don't want them
invite
to
them out
forget
to
about
future.
me, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that really happens. Like, you know, I think there was like 2-3 weeks that I didn't post anything, and then when I repost, everyone is like, "Oh, hey Ruby, like I'm just back." Yeah. Like, I'm back from Colombia. Like, I'm ready to start your program. And another person was like, "Hey, can I, you know, call you Monday?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, you know, everything will be dead if you're not being
You got to be
consistent. If you're
consistent.
there."
You got to be planting seeds all the time.
Right. Yeah.
You don't know what's going to grow. You don't know what's going to blossom. You don't know what's going to get dried up and burned up in the sun. What needs to catch soil and what doesn't. Like as long as you're planting seeds, something will grow. You know, and you just got to be doing that and doing that prospecting on a consistent basis. And
Right.
the other thing that I've noticed is like the email's more predictable. Right? By doing email marketing, it's more predictable than the Facebook and the social media stuff. Because who knows, maybe you were on vacation this week, you didn't even log into Facebook and social media, and you're just like, hey, I'm taking a week off, and if I posted today, and you don't come on until a week from now, you're not gonna see my post from today, right?
Right.
And so, but the email sits in your inbox until you actually open it up.
You gotta open it.
Exactly. So like, I like doing both. I like promoting both on the email side of things and promoting on the social media side, and on all social media channels: Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, all of them, and then doing the email side too, and making sure if somebody wants your information, they're going to see it because they're connected with you on all these different platforms.
Right.
You're
Wherever
posting
you
on
go
all of
on
them.
there, that's kind of like the thing.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you want to make sure that they're available. So
Right.
I don't think there's anything more powerful than social media to grow, and there's no cost to it, right? And
Right.
same thing with the email marketing. But you really need to be consistent with it in order to have predictable revenue.
Consistency.
Because otherwise it can be very sporadic because you don't know how many people are seeing it and what
Right.
the algorithms look like and how many people Facebook's showing it to and all that stuff. There's just a lot of moving parts, so you have to make sure that you're doing it from all different angles and trying to connect with people on all sides. But yeah, just having the consistency I think is a big deal. So
Right.
tell me what 2021 has looked like so far for you. So you got people and processes in place for your flipping business. Obviously the market's going gangbusters. You're working hard though, finding deals, but at the same time you have lifestyle, right? And had a terrible tragedy that hit last month where your brother had passed away. And tell me about like what has building your business this way been able to do so that way you could spend time with your family and support your family and be there for your family during this really, really difficult time.
Right. So I think, you know, one of the things that catch my attention when I started real estate was financial freedom and lifestyle, right? Having more time with my family. But I never thought that, you know, like during this tragedy where my brother passed, where I needed to be with my family, supporting them, you know, and obviously doing a lot of other things with that situation. More than ever, I thought about that again. Like, you know, sometimes we think that everything is going to be, you know,
You think it's all about vacations?
About vacation,
Yeah.
about
traveling,
you know,
and all the positive side of things.
Right.
But
Yeah.
the time freedom is just as important, or maybe more important, during these difficult times.
Difficult times, and I was thinking, like, this is huge. Like, I'm able to be with my family whenever they need me. No one has to call me, you know. My business is still running. Even I think that in that in this last month, I think the guys put like about 4 properties. They purchased 4 properties in 1 week. You know,
it's awesome.
And without me being there, without me doing absolutely anything, and that was huge for me. I was like, this is where I needed to be at this moment. This is where I needed to be, which is where my business needed to be in order for me to step out, you know, and be with my family. And just like you're saying, you know, a lot of people, they see it differently. I just think that, you know, I agree with you. Time is everything. And more than ever, I realized that my business can run without me. I don't need to be there. I can, you know.
What does it look like now that you've, you know, a lot of times these life-changing experiences change your perspective on things too. What does the second half of 2021 look like, and moving forward? Are there any, I'm sure you've reflected on life and your business a lot over the past 4 or 5 weeks. What does the future hold? Like, are there any differences or changes that you think you're going to make in your business or in your life over the course of the next 6, 12, 18 months based on this, you know, tragedy that did happen?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's time. It's all about time. Yeah, you know, one of the hardest moments in my life, I have never lost anyone in my family except my grandparents. But someone so close that grew with me, like, you know, we were playing together. That day I saw him, I hugged him that day. And having to lose him like this fast, and being at his funeral, being at, you know, seeing him underground, I reflect in a way where time is everything. I'm here now. I don't know if I'm going to be here tomorrow. Only God knows. And I was thinking about, you know, like the legacy for my family, you know, the legacy for, but not only the legacy on the wealth, you know, and money-wise, but also what type of legacy am I leaving in my family with my time, with the memories. I think that's, you know, that's what I was thinking when I was looking at my, you know, that moment. And I thought about, I need to change the way I'm doing things with my time. I need to, you know, obviously I'm working with, you know, the coaching program. But one of the things that I was doing when I was doing the coaching program was I was spending a lot of time too, working like Saturdays, evenings, you know, and all of that. And it was just because that was how I was. I came, you know, one of the things that I can procrastinate a lot, you know, or not at all, pretty much. And I used to see my daughter and my, and, you know, in a Friday night with my husband, sitting down on the couch, you know, watching a movie. And I was there, but I was with my laptop, you know, things like that. And then after seeing that moment, I was like, no, you know, I want to be able to plan my hours, plan my day. Because if I'm not here tomorrow, I want to be able to leave that legacy to my family. Of being with her.
That's powerful. Yeah, that's man, I can't imagine going through that. And but I know you're making your brother proud. I know I saw some of the message that he used to send you and stuff. And it seems like he was just an absolutely remarkable guy. And can't tell you how sorry I am for the loss. And but I know you'll continue making him proud. You're gonna do some big stuff. And proud to have you in the Legacy family too. So appreciate you being there. We got the big Charleston event coming up.
Right.
So, right here in our own hometown, and we got some players coming out and speaking at that. So it's gonna be an awesome event. I'm excited for what 2021 holds for you, and I appreciate you being here.
Ooh,
cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hope you guys got a ton of value out of that. Rubi's an absolutely amazing individual, not only in business, but she's just a rock star human being as well. And been through a lot, especially recently, and just excited about all the amazing things that she's going to continue to achieve in both business and life, and just really got her head on straight. So hopefully you guys got a ton of value out of that. I did. I'm going to rewatch, take some notes on some things that we talked about, and if you got value out of it, I know other people will too. So please share this, please like, please subscribe, and leave some comments. Give me your biggest takeaway from the video down here below. And until next time, see you on the next Spill the Beans.